had a customer ask me yesterday if we could use something other than cane sugar in our ice cream, something like honey or agave. Let me first talk a little bit about what sugar does in ice cream. Sugar has three purposes for our ice cream. One is flavor. It gives you that sweetness. If you didn't have sugar, it would just taste like milk. Although milk does have a little bit of sweetness, but it's not going to be enough to give you that ice cream flavor and taste. If you use a sugar that has a neutral flavor, then the other ingredients are going to come through. Whereas if you use a sweetener that has a lot of flavor to it, like maple syrup, that's the flavor that's going to come out in that ice cream. Second, sugar affects the freezing point of an ice cream. If you didn't have sugar at all, then it would just be a block of ice. Third, and related, it gives you texture. So depending on the kind of sugar you use and how much sugar you use, it's going to give you the specific kind of scoopability. So is it goopy? Is it hard? Is it chalky? What are some of the different types of sugars that you can use in ice cream? So there's cane sugar. That's the one that we use every day in our homes. That comes from a plant that is a stalk that you might have seen around. You can chew on it. It's pretty sweet, and it lowers the freezing point to a moderate amount. A lot of recipes at home use just cane sugar, and they come out just fine. Usually the ice creams are just a little bit harder, and you have to leave them out on the counter or microwave them a little bit to get them scoopable on second serving. There is agave. This comes from a succulent plant. They extract the sap from that succulent and then use a high heat in order to turn it into this nice goopy liquid that you see. There's dextrose. Dextrose is a pure glucose kind of sugar. It is also neutral. This is 20% less sweet than cane sugar. It also lowers the freezing point significantly. It will freeze softer. And then of course we have honey. Honey is a sweetener that comes from bees, and it has two different kinds of sweetener in it. There's a sucrose and a glucose in honey. Honey has a strong flavor, so it's going to give you a very specific taste. It's going to differ by batch of honey. It's also pretty sweet, so you will get that sweetness from honey as well as that flavor profile. And it does actually lower the freezing point of ice cream. So if you use too much honey, then you're going to get an ice cream that's just goopy. It's never going to freeze the way that you want it to. Maple syrup also has a very specific taste to it as well as texture. It has some inverted sugar in it, and it is going to be very sweet. It's going to give you a very robust flavor profile in your ice cream. The maple syrup, as you can see, it's very liquidy, so that adds a lot of water. You have to adjust the rest of your recipe in order to take into account the amount of liquid that you are putting in from these. That's the art to ice cream making. Some of it's science and some of it's art. So the way that we normally make ice cream is we use a mixture of cane sugar and dextrose, and in some of our flavors, depending on how many solids are in it, so how hard it might get, we also use a tapioca syrup. Tapioca syrup comes from a root of a plant, the cassava plant. We currently have an ice cream that is mostly honey-based right now. That's our honey chev that combines honey as our main source of sweetener, as well as the chev cheese that we get from Antonelli's. That cheese adds more of the solids to the ice creams. It counterbalances the liquid that we add with the honey. Agaves and your honeys and the liquid sweeteners, those also add water to your ice cream base or add more liquid to your ice cream base, and so you have to adjust the rest of your recipe. What about like stevia or zero sugars? Stevia will add sweetness. It doesn't give you any bulk to your ice cream, and it also does not lower your freezing point. So if you use just stevia in your ice cream, you will get something that is rock hard when you freeze it. One quick note about vegan ice creams and the vegan flavors. All of this remains the same. However, the thing that you really need to look out for in vegan ice creams is fat. The four things that make an ice cream are sugar, fat, water, and air. And so with the vegan ice cream, you have significantly less fat because most of those milks do not have as much fat. That's why you'll see a lot of coconut milk as a base, is because it has the highest amount of fat of the non-dairy varieties that we've seen so far. So if you are making a vegan ice cream, or in order to create that scoopability, you can use some of these other sweeteners that is going to lower the freezing point and make it more scoopable. But the solids in it are going to be off. So you're going to need to balance that as well. So what do we do with our ice cream? We generally use 2 or 3 types of sweeteners in our ice creams, depending on what the flavor is and how many solids that we're adding. So for example, a chocolate-based ice cream is going to have more solids in it, and so we're going to have 3 types of sugar, whereas something like a sweet cream base or a vanilla base is going to have fewer solids in it, and so we just use 2 kinds of sugar. The 3 types of sugar that we use in our ice cream, we use dextrose, so that's why our ice creams don't feel overly sweet to a lot of people. We also use Cane sugar, this is our secondary source of sweetener that we use. We use less cane sugar than we do dextrose in almost all of our ice creams. Again, it adds more sweetness to the ice cream and it does not lower our freezing point that much, so we tend to not use quite as much of the cane sugar. In some of our flavors, we also use a tapioca syrup. Tapioca syrup comes from a root of a plant, the cassava plant. That's going to give you the texture that you're experiencing. Our vegan ice creams use exactly the same things as our other ice creams do: dextrose, cane sugar, and tapioca syrup. So that's the quick rundown: sugar and ice cream. You can play with the different types of sugar, how much you use, what balance you use, and that mixture is going to give you the exact ice cream that you want in your home.